Folks, here is a presentation for the second week. The topics for the week are teamwork and groups and also the situation. So I'm going to go through this presentation kind of quick. It's got about 26 slides and I don't want you here all day and I don't want to be talking all day. So this one, leadership, let's try to define it. Chapter 1, we kind of introduced some ideas, gave us some definitions. These are the ingredients. So as we kind of pointed out in chapter 1, leadership is hard to define just because all the different dimensions and facets. But when we talk leadership, we're talking the things that you see, those words that you see right there on this page. So kind of using this little tiny pointer, these are the ingredients and these are the things we're going to play with and analyze this semester. Actually, most of them are topics that we'll do. So let's get going. Take a look. Okay, a lot of the stuff that's out there, kind of that shades of blue that we use one word to describe leadership and too many different shades and variations. We really need more words. So a lot of times you can just Google it. This next slide I'm going to show you. If you Google leadership, what is it? And this is what I did. And then I went and looked at images. These are the images that popped up. And if you look at them, it's one of those things, it's kind of correct, but it's missing things, just like those definitions in chapter 1. It belongs to those who take it. Well, leadership is really an attribution process. So it has to be given. It has to be given by the followers. There's a difference between authority, position, and power, and leadership. This one, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Well, as you'll discover, it's really a particular type of influence. So if I influenced you by scaring you and yelling at you and threatening you, I've influenced you, but we wouldn't say that that's leadership. Leadership is not a position or a title. It's action and an example. Well, it is, but it's a particular type. This one over here, I just can't see it. It said the leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence, and that it's a better place when you leave. Well, I could joke that donuts do the same thing. Leadership is not about controlling, it's about inspiring. Being inspirational doesn't necessarily make you a leader. You can be inspiring and have a great story and people can take notice and feel like they need to do something because of your example. But leadership's about organizing people and moving them toward a goal. So all of these, if your this one right here, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, you are a leader. That's a John Quincy Adams quote. It's not. This is a contemporary idea. John Quincy Adams is not a contemporary guy. Back then, leadership was about politics and statesmanship and guiding governments. And so just be aware that when you see these things, hopefully, through this experience, we're making that new file drawer in our head for what leadership really is, kind of leadership 2.0, leadership updated, leadership revised. So let me show you these. So leadership versus authority, and we will pull this apart, and particularly when we talk about power and influence. And authority is vested usually within a position. A leader has the people. So it's closer. We're getting closer. In what way do they have the people? It's getting closer. These, okay, here's another one. Difference between a boss versus a leader. So in that last presentation, some of those word associations, I gave you boss. These are probably the things that pop to your mind if we were to write out that prototypical boss that resides in the boss file in our heads. Leader, this is what we're talking about. These are the ingredients. So partially correct, but we need to fill in the blanks. When we see leadership, we tend to see these things, but those things don't necessarily guarantee and assure us that we are looking at a leader. So boss versus leader, and we'll pull apart manager versus a leader here in just a bit. These get a lot closer. So here's Nelson Mandela, and this one ties right back to the example that I gave in the little little introduction, talking about the bike rides. So Nelson Mandela and others have also observed it's better to lead from behind and put others in front when you celebrate victory, when nice things occur. You let them take the credit. You let them grow and develop by being out front. You take the front line when there is danger, then the people will appreciate your leadership. So we're getting a lot closer, getting a lot closer. Warren Bennis, big name. I met Warren Bennis in an elevator. Leadership is like beauty. It's hard to define, but you know it when you see it. And then also this one, which I'm hiding. Leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. Leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality with particular types of influence, incorporating these ideas. Again, that definition is hard. And actually, this kind of goes back also to our physical attractiveness study as well. So lots of things kind of fallen in upon themselves. So let's keep going. I'm going to, again, kind of go through this a little faster than I normally would. Here's something that popped up. I was given a thing to review. It was about a curriculum for school kids. And someone had written, it started off by saying, we all know bad leaders. Bad leaders. You know, we can think of dictators around the world, and they're just bad leaders. And my brain got stuck on that. And if they're bad, what does that mean? Does that mean that they don't share our values and that they're guiding people toward different places? If so, bad is really just kind of more of an assessment of ethics, which we can take a whole course and debate that. A bad leader, does that mean they're choosing bad ways of getting people to do stuff? Are they scaring and threatening and coercing? Well, if they are, then that the leader blue shade really doesn't hold up. It's something else. So kind of my brain went to, in this kind of little intellectual activity inside my head, maybe a bad leader is kind of like cold. It's kind of an oxymoron. It doesn't really exist. With cold really isn't a thing. It's just the absence of heat. And so you can go and look, you can Google this and look it up if you've had science classes, physics classes. Everything's got heat if it's moving. So as long as it's moving, it's got heat. If it's moving faster, the little atoms and other things are moving faster, it's going to be hotter. If it's moving slower, it's going to be less hot. So ponder that. A bad leader, is there really such a thing as a bad leader? Or is it sometimes either they are a leader or they're not a leader? So they're not much of a leader, or they're a really good leader, but they're not really a bad leader. Bad leaders might be an ethical dilemma. It might be the improper use of the word leader. So play with that. I'm going to keep on going. All right, here's a little thing I wanted to show you. This is from an earlier presentation. I just left it in there. I play in our community band, and this actually isn't from the community band. This is from our little church orchestra. But I play bass clarinet, which is kind of a weird instrument. I also play saxophone. Bass clarinet is kind of the tuba of the woodwinds, and this little story kind of says that there was one night where the tubas were all missing from community band. And so I was the only low voice in the band that night. And so I found myself playing particularly loud. And by the time I left, kind of, maybe you've kind of picked up on it now, my weird organization kind of professor brain had to make sense of what had happened. And bass clarinet systems theory that all parts are necessary. Some parts are more flashy and showy. Other parts are not so flashy and showy, but they're all needed and they're all dependent upon each other. So that night I left feeling like that I was a little more recognized and a little more important that night because I was playing basically a solo for all the low parts. So that idea of systems theory, and it's okay not to be the flashy, showy one. It's totally okay to be the heartbeat and the thing that everything else rests upon. It's all part of the system. All right, so with all of these ideas, let me show you this one. Right here, this is an awesome video. Let me let you start it. I've got the sound turned way down so you can still hear me talk. You probably prefer to hear the music. This is Leonard Bernstein, who world-class composer and conductor, musician, just an amazing individual. And this is a video from performance with the Vienna Philharmonic, performing one of the movements from a Haydn concerto. So love this video for several reasons. One, we do study abroads in Vienna. Vienna is one of my favorite places. And this is at the Musikverein, the home of the Vienna Philharmonic. Haydn, Joseph Haydn, we've been to his house. That's one of the stops that we make when we study our famous Viennese composers. But the other thing is a leadership thing. And so as you watch this, he's the conductor. Does it look like he's doing much conducting? He's there. He's there and ready to do whatever's needed to be done. But he's also surrounded with world-class musicians playing a piece that they'd already played. I think this was an encore. So he can stand there. He's ready to act if need be. But it really looks like he's just enjoying it to me. So the question is, where is leadership? Who's the leader? Too often we like to ascribe leadership to a single person, when in fact it should probably be ascribed and given to the members of the whole team. So limiting ourselves to just talking about the leader as being the conductor, we miss a lot in this video. Leadership, that idea of interdependence, people working together to accomplish something, they're all doing it. They're all doing it because they're highly trained professionals who not only are good musicians playing their instruments, but they're also good musicians and that they can play with the other musicians. So let me stop that there. If you want to Google it, you can, or I can send you the link to it. But just a wonderful example of that idea of teamwork, shared leadership spread out across many different people and not just vested in one person. Where we're going with this is reconceptualizing these traditional views and usages of the word leader and leadership. So this is a little presentation that I put together looking at teamwork as leadership, and teamwork is leadership. So let's dig into this and play with it some more. All right, systems theory. We have to go back. This wonderful metaphors that came in when the human relations movement began back in the 40s and 50s, when management people are realizing that management theory is more than just economic theory and organization theory, but we can borrow ideas from other academic disciplines. And so we ended up over in the science area, who studies systems, solar systems, bodily systems, biological systems. The definition of a system, two or more interdependent elements arranged to accomplish a whole, that's basically the definition of an organization. So our management predecessors ended up over in sciences after they had gone to psychology and sociology and other places, borrowing ideas from other places. So the idea of an organization as a system, interdependent elements arranged and working together interdependently to accomplish a whole. And part of open systems are a lot of these things right here, these boundary spanning, these different functions in here. You've got the input, process, output. You've got a lot of different elements and dimensions. We'll come back to systems theory more, particularly in the second half of the semester if you do the organizational behavior class. Why do people join groups? So we need to kind of pull apart groups. So a group is just kind of a small organization. These, if you look, these tap into needs. So Maslow's need hierarchy, Alderfer, McClelland's learned need theories. We join groups because we can do more things as a group and we can receive more benefits within a group than we can by ourselves. So I'm hoping that many of you see Maslow and some of these other need theories. Here's McClelland's power theory, learned need for power, need for achievement, self-esteem, the status, the security. Those things tie in nicely with Maslow. So that's why people join groups. You can do more as a group. You can satisfy more needs within a group than you can just by yourself as an individual. A team versus a group. Have you ever thought about those words and the difference between them? So within a team, really think about a sports team, and that's why I have that picture up in the background. A sports team where everybody has a role. Within a work group, you can just have a group of people. Everybody can be out picking up trash together as a group, but a team of people, they're going to be doing different things. So the team we tend to think of is a group with more specialized roles and interdependence, and then in individual and mutual accountability, We're over here, over at the Wharton Business School, they say more individual accountability. So ponder those. Let me keep on going. We will come back to this. It should be in the chapter, but we'll definitely come back to it next second class as well. Now, let's look at this. This is John Cotter. And John Cotter wants to start pointing out the difference. So again, the shades of blue. So management tends to deal with complexity. Our bike ride projects, like I said in that video, a tremendously complex project. Leadership is about coping with change. So as things change, leadership and the vision and the mission and what you all stand for and what unites you, that's the thing that remains constant, kind of like a lighthouse during a storm. So complexity, management is needed. You have to deal with the complexity. Everything has to be taken care of. But leadership is something different, focuses on something a little different. Management deals with planning and budgeting. Plan, organize, lead, and control. Planning and budgeting versus setting a direction. Which way are we going to go? Organizing and staffing, getting everybody in place and making sure we have the right people. But leadership is more of aligning people and assuring that they all know where they're going, why it's important, how they're going to get there, or given the chance to make those decisions themselves. So getting everybody in place and then getting them all lined up and moving together. Management tends to be more on controlling, and by controlling, it's not making sure you stay where you're supposed to, but it's keeping like a control system, like cruise control in your car. It's making sure that you stay within the boundaries that you set up. So controlling and problem solving. Cotter says that leadership tends to be more about motivating people. So really good kind of classic thoughts. John Cotter, HBR from 1990. And here, let's do a little bit more on Cotter right here. So John Cotter also said in talking about management versus leadership, that most corporations, they're overmanaged. They're under-led. The real challenge is to combine strong leadership and strong management to balance each other. You have to have both to balance each other out. So you need to deal with the complexity and the change. You need to deal with the motivation and the organization. This one right here, no one's really figured out how to manage people into battle. They must be led. And that could be literal battle, or it could be more figurative battle as well. And then institutioning a leadership-centered culture is the ultimate act of leadership. Edgar Schein talks about culture and described that creating and maintaining an effective culture and destroying ineffective cultures are what leadership's about. Creating and maintaining effective cultures and destroying ineffective cultures. It's creating a culture where everybody is focused and directed the same way, shares the same values with the same goals, and they all depend on each other. We'll come back to that here in just a minute. All right, with this, I got to talk about this. This is really a motivation theory, so I was going to put this off to the org behavior class, but for the sake of this, I need to. This is Herzberg's two-factor theory of motivation and satisfaction. And what he said, if you're not familiar with this, he said that they're really that being very satisfied and being dissatisfied are not the opposite ends of a single continuum, but rather they're two different, this is hard to do in this camera backwards, they're really two opposite ends of two different continuums. And so this one, here, I'll do this one down here. These are the hygiene factors. If these things are absent, it leads to job dissatisfaction. You're highly dissatisfied with your job if you don't have a good supervisor, if your pay is not what it should be, the company policies are terrible, the physical working conditions. If this is bad, if these things are missing, you're going to be dissatisfied with your job. If they're present, according to Herzberg, if they're present, it doesn't mean that you like your job. It just gets you up to being okay with it, that you're really kind of almost neutral about it. So you're not really dissatisfied, but you're not satisfied. Okay, so these things, if they're absent, they lead to dissatisfaction. If they're present, they just get you up to neutral and being okay. The motivation factors, these are the motivators. These things, if they're present, they lead to high satisfaction. And if they're absent, they lead to low satisfaction. They get you just down to okay, not dissatisfaction, but just low satisfaction. You're okay with it. So if these things are present, but you don't really have a motivating workplace, you're just kind of okay with it. If you want a motivating workplace, you as the ones in charge, this is what you need to promote and give to your people. So these are kind of Western Electric things. that again we'll hit later down the road. So, but this is the idea that I want you to take from this slide. There are two different sets of factors. If they're absent, that's the worst. If they're present, you're neutral. If these things are absent, you're neutral. If they're present, that's the best. That's Herzberg stuff. Here's how it relates to Maslow's need hierarchy. So Maslow, if you look, the motivators right here, these motivators tie over to those top levels on Maslow's need hierarchy. The hygiene factors are kind of these lower level things. So this is basically, there's Maslow's need hierarchy, and you can sit Herzberg right in there next to it. Let me show you this. So this is mine, and as properly cited down here. Actually, I did this at a presentation. This is what I call kind of a two-factor management leadership model. Using those same ideas that Herzberg did, these are the management functions right here, just kind of good old classic management functions developed from org theory. These, I would argue, if these things are absent, performance is going to be ineffective. You're going to have poor performance if everything is disorganized, it's not managed. If there's no good management, it's going to be a mess. If these things are present, I would argue that it's just going to get you up to being okay. Remember, you can't manage people into battle, they have to be led. I think the same idea. You can't manage people toward exceptional performance, they must be led. So on this dimension, this leadership, these are the ingredients of leadership. If you go back to that very first slide, I think you'll probably see some overlap between what was on that very first slide and these right here. These things, if they are absent and you just have management, I would argue that you're just going to have acceptable, you're going to have good performance. But if you really want exceptional performance, you're going to have these ingredients. Leadership is needed to boost you up into the exceptional realm. Management is to keep you out of being ineffective. Management is to get you up to being acceptable and good. Leadership is going to be that which pushes you on up to the top. So those are just kind of my ideas thinking through the stuff that I get to think through. All right, let's do this real quick. Played a lot of years, played softball, and I was kind of the equivalent of that person, except I didn't want to stand so close to the batter. Played third base for a long time. Think about softball, think about baseball, think about other sports that you've been a part of. And think about that idea of teamwork as leadership. Teamwork is leadership. Here, let's do some real quick fielding scenarios. And really the neat thing about this is you can put yourself in any of these positions. I tend to think of it from the third base perspective because that's where I played. So one out, runner on first base. I think you baseball people, softball people would know that if the ball were hit to me on the ground, I would probably throw it straight over there to second base and try to turn it up a play. If it's hit to me in the air, real quick line drive, I'm going to catch that thing and I'm going to see if I can pick the runner off here at first base. If it's hit kind of over my shoulder, I may have to run and catch it over here. If it's foul, I'm going to have to make sure that that person gets back on base. So in every scenario, when the batter gets up, I'm thinking through all of the different scenarios. And the fun thing is, neat thing is, that everyone else on the team is doing the exact same thing. All right, why is this not working? Okay, here's the next one. So what about one out runner on second base? So they're on second base. If the ball is hit to me on the ground, I'm going to look that runner back and I'm going to throw it over to first base. And then that runner may be run into my base. So I'm going to get back on third, standing on the inside. So if they are running, first base can throw it back to me and I can tag that person when they're sliding in. All right, that's just kind of the standard play. But if it's hit anywhere else in the field, except to me, I know what I need to do. And everybody else on the team knows exactly what to do as well. This next one, one out, runners on first and second. This third baseman's dream right here. So if it's hit to me on the ground, I'm going to step on third and I'm going to try to throw him out at first. That's my better throw. And usually the runner coming out of the batter's box is going to be a little slower than the person coming from first base to second base. So that's what I would do. And like I said, everybody else on the team knows exactly what to do. When the ball is hit, we don't all look over at the manager over in the dugout and ask what we do. Everybody knows what to do. Everybody has been trained. They understand their roles. They understand their position within the team and on the team. At work, in organizations, too often we focus leadership in one person, but it's really not. It's just like Leonard Bernstein standing there and conducting this group of people without really doing anything. They're doing leadership. All right, no outs, bases loaded. A lot of this depends on one, what's the score and how close are we to being done? If we're up by 25 runs and we're in the last inning, I'll probably just maybe step over there on third base and throw it back over to first and try to get double play, or to second. If that's the game tying or go ahead run on third base, then I'm going to go home. Everybody is thinking those exact same things. So here, let's look at the next one. We can kind of turn this around now and do the same thing with base running scenarios as well. So this first one, if you're on first base with no outs, we know what to do. If the ball's hit on the ground, if it touches the ground, you got to go. If it's in the air, you got to be careful. Are you able to tag up, or do you need to stay home? So you're always making sense of the scenarios. You're running through this in your head as your buddy's getting up there to bat. On third base with no outs, runner on first. Depends on where the ball's hit. If it's hit in the outfield, I'm just kind of trotting in with a hit. If it's popped up in the outfield, I may look to tag up. If it's hit on the ground, if it's hit to the third baseman, maybe I'll try to distract that third baseman and let my buddies advance around. Or maybe it's going to be on the ground and thrown out at first, and maybe I can get home depending on the scenario, or I may just kind of have to stay put. We all know this. And so as we go through these, I think baseball people, softball people, we all understand it. That's just the way it's done. A team is full of people who understand the game, and every time they're confronted with something, they know exactly what to do. They don't have to wait on someone to tell them what to do. Kind of like those musicians that we saw with the Vienna Philharmonic. All right, with this, my brain went to this. No, here's my unashamed whatever. This is also another one of my alma maters, University of Alabama. They just had a big game a couple of weeks ago. To me, from a management leadership perspective, it's amazing. Nick Saban just set a record for national championships, and the number of times that he's taken teams to the national championship. The idea of a dynasty, and that's why I kept this on here, even though it's from 2017. The idea of a dynasty. When people come to play for Nick Saban at the University of Alabama, they are stepping into that culture of national champions. They're stepping into a culture of excellence. And so if they're going there, they know that that's part of the expectation and the way the organization works. So from a leadership perspective, the culture is really almost what we call leadership substitute, that you can build an effective culture which takes care of some of the leadership things that other leaders would have to contend with and deal with. Leadership also can be, it can also work the opposite way and actually be a hindrance to leaders getting stuff done if you step into an organization that has a history of, I don't want to say failure, but not doing well. So culture, dynasty, leadership, instilling this in your people. The players are out on the field making the plays, but Nick Saban and his coaching staff are over there helping, and they're coming up with a strategy. But it's up to the players to enact the strategy that the coaching staff is coming up with. It's interesting. And so the question for us would be, how do we take these ideas and apply them to all types of organizations? All right, so here's my definition. I know you've been waiting on it. So this is chapter 1. Trying to take care of some of those shades of blue. We don't want dictators. We don't want Hitlers. We don't want other bad people doing bad things in here. We want to make sure that this definition is closer to what we think of when we think of as leading others. So a perceptual process that exists in the minds of the followers. Leadership is about accomplishing worthwhile and exceptional things through and with other people. So you're involved in it. And in the process, it's going to lift the goals, values, aspirations, dignity, and self-worth for all those involved. Not just the people in the organization, but the people that the organization is serving. ponder that one. So that's kind of where my brain is on this stuff right now. But maybe by the end of the semester, you'll be able to add to this or tweak it or modify it. But perceptual, it can't just be taken. It has to be earned. It comes from the minds of the followers. They have to attribute leadership to you. It's about doing things. So if you're not doing anything with other people, then are you really a leader? So it's about doing worthwhile, needed things, necessary, but also really cool things, exceptional things. Building a dynasty through and with other people, but also you're in there with them. And then the process is going to lift the goals. It's going to raise the people in all different ways that you work with and that you're serving. So when I talk about leadership, this is where my brain is kind of going, making ideas into reality, uplifting everybody involved. Also kind of goes back to those servant leader ideas from Greenleaf and other things. All right, so what does this mean for you? These are going to be your questions. So I will post these. I want you to think about it. So instead of like last week where it was just kind of an open-ended, let you pick your angle, I'd like for you to kind of address these things. So those work, and if you're a full-time student or doing other things right now, and you're not particularly in a workplace at this moment, then you can analyze another organization that you're a part of or what you envision your workplace being like. So how is your workplace like a team? What is your role within that team? And who do you work with and rely on the most? How can you instill a dynasty mentality in your workplace? And then how can you develop leadership within your team and make sure all those players or musicians or whatever they are fully capable and professional and competent and don't need a lot of direction and guidance, but can just be kind of told go, and they're going to go off and do wonderful things. So that's this week's presentation. And again, I hope this opens up new ways of thinking about these concepts. And I think it ties in real well with these two chapters. That's why I kind of scheduled it here. And then we will keep moving on and getting through this stuff. So that's it. Thanks. Bye-bye.